Hello there, and welcome to Sleepy Science Guide. I'm so glad you found your way here tonight. Perhaps the day has been loud, filled with voices and notifications, and the constant pull of a world that never seems to pause for breath. Perhaps you're simply someone who finds comfort in sinking into something vast and quiet, something that moves at its own unhurried pace. Either way, this journey is made for you. You don't need to do anything now but settle in. Let your shoulders drop. Let your jaw unclench. Let the tension around your eyes soften. Let your breathing find its own natural rhythm, slow and easy, like waves that have forgotten how to rush. Tonight, we're not traveling upward to the stars or backward through time. We're going down. Not metaphorically, but in a way that feels almost physical, as if gravity itself is gently pulling you deeper into rest. We're descending into the deep ocean, into a place where light fades, sound softens, and time seems to stretch and slow until it barely moves at all. A place where the usual rules of the surface world no longer apply, where pressure replaces chaos, where darkness becomes a kind of comfort, and where nothing, absolutely nothing, is in a hurry. Before we begin this gentle descent, if these quiet explorations help you unwind or give you a peaceful way to end your day, I'd love to know which country you're listening from tonight. Leave a comment below and let me know where in the world you're drifting off to sleep. It creates a small connection across continents. A reminder that no matter where we are, we all carry the need for rest. And if this kind of content brings you calm, consider gently tapping the like button and subscribing to the channel. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Now, let your mind grow soft at the edges. Let the weight of your body sink deeper into wherever you're resting. Let go of the day that's past and the day that's coming, because we're about to turn our attention downward to discover what it means to truly sink, to let go, to descend into a world that asks nothing of you but stillness. When you think about down, what comes to mind? It's such a simple word, such a basic concept, yet it carries weight in ways we rarely stop to consider. Down is where things fall when you let them go. Down is where your body sinks when you finally stop resisting. Down is the direction of rest, of release, of gravity pulling you towards something solid and safe. We use the word casually, constantly, without thinking. Sit down, lie down, calm down. Slow down. But what does it actually mean to go down, to descend, to move away from the surface and into something deeper? In the physical world, down is simply the direction gravity pulls. Objects fall toward the center of mass, toward the Earth's core, drawn by an invisible force that never stops, never rests, never questions. But in the human mind, down is something more. It's not just a direction, it's a feeling, a state, a way of being. When you say you're feeling down, you're describing a heaviness, a sinking, a release of tension or energy. When you say you're winding down, you're describing a transition from activity to rest, from noise to quiet, from the surface of consciousness to something deeper and softer. The deep ocean is the embodiment of down. It's the place you arrive at when you keep descending, keep sinking, keep letting go of everything that holds you at the surface. It's not a place you rush toward. You don't dive aggressively into the deep ocean. You drift, you float, you allow gravity and buoyancy to find their balance, and you let yourself be carried, slowly, gently, deeper and deeper into a world that exists far below the chaos of waves and weather and wind. There's something profoundly calming about this idea. if you allow yourself to feel it. The surface of the ocean is restless, constantly moving, constantly changing. Waves rise and fall. Wind pushes water into peaks and troughs. Sunlight dances across the surface in patterns that shift every second. It's beautiful, but it's also busy. There's no stillness at the surface. There's no peace. The surface is where energy lives, where motion happens, where things crash and splash and churn. But as you descend, as you move downward through the water column, something begins to change. The waves lose their grip on you. The motion fades. The push and pull of the surface world grows distant, muffled, less insistent. You're no longer subject to the whims of wind and weather. You're no longer tossed about by forces beyond your control. You're sinking into a place where those forces can't reach you, where the water itself absorbs and softens and quiets everything that tries to disturb it. This is what the deep ocean offers. Not excitement, not drama. Not the kind of beauty that demands your attention and overwhelms your senses. Instead, it offers something much rarer and much more valuable. It offers stillness. It offers a world where nothing is in a hurry, where nothing demands immediate response, where time itself seems to slow and soften until it feels almost irrelevant. Imagine yourself now, here in this moment, as if you're suspended in water, not struggling, not swimming, not trying to stay afloat or move in any particular direction, just suspended, held, supported by something denser than air but softer than ground. The water holds you without effort, without judgment, without asking anything in return. You don't have to work to stay here. You don't have to fight or push or strain. You simply exist, floating in the space between up and down, between effort and rest, between wakefulness and sleep. And as you float here, imagine that you're slowly beginning to sink, not falling, not dropping, but sinking the way a leaf sinks through still water, gently, gradually, without resistance. Gravity is pulling you down, but not in a harsh or violent way. It's pulling you down the way a parent's hand on your back guides you toward bed when you're too tired to walk. It's pulling you down the way sleep itself pulls you from consciousness into dreams. Slowly, softly, inevitably. With each breath you take, you sink a little deeper, not in a way that feels frightening or claustrophobic, but in a way that feels right, natural, like you're finally arriving somewhere you were meant to be all along. The surface grows more distant with every exhale. The light begins to fade. The sounds of the world above become muffled and then silent, and you're left with nothing but the sensation of descent, of release, of letting go completely and trusting that the deep will hold you. This is the first gift the deep ocean offers, the gift of descent without fear, the gift of going down without falling, the gift of surrendering to gravity and discovering that surrender feels not like defeat, but like coming home. One of the most striking things about the deep ocean, one of the qualities that makes it so unlike any other environment on Earth, is its silence. Not the kind of silence you find in a quiet room or on a still night, where you might hear the hum of electronics, or the distant rumble of traffic, or the subtle sounds of your own body breathing and shifting. The deep ocean offers something more profound, more complete. It offers a silence so deep and so pervasive that it becomes almost tangible, almost like a presence. Sound, as we experience it on land and at the ocean's surface, is a product of vibration traveling through a medium. When something moves or strikes or vibrates, it creates waves that ripple outward, through air or water, carrying energy that our ears detect and our brains interpret as sound. On land, sound travels relatively slowly and dissipates relatively quickly. A shout carries for a few hundred meters at most. A whisper barely travels across a room. But water is different. Water is denser than air, and sound travels through it much more efficiently. In fact, sound travels about 4 times faster in water than in air, and it can travel for enormous distances without losing much of its strength. Near the surface of the ocean, where human activity is concentrated, where ships travel and engines rumble and waves crash, the ocean can be surprisingly noisy. The grinding of propellers, the clicking of shrimp, the calls of whales, the breaking of waves, all of these sounds fill the water with a constant background hum of activity. Even in relatively remote areas, the surface layers of the ocean carry the acoustic fingerprints of life and motion and energy. But as you descend, as you move deeper and deeper into the ocean's interior, something remarkable happens. The sources of sound begin to fall away. The waves, which create so much noise at the surface through their constant breaking and churning, lose their influence. Wave motion is a surface phenomenon. It's driven by wind, and the energy of that wind only penetrates so deep. Below a certain depth, the water is simply too far removed from the surface for waves to affect it. The chaotic churning and mixing and crashing that defines the surface world fades into memory, leaving only stillness. Ships, too, become irrelevant. The sound of engines and propellers, while it can travel deep, is confined to certain regions and certain times. In the vast majority of the deep ocean, far from shipping lanes and human activity, there are no engines to hear, no mechanical sounds to disturb the quiet. The acoustic signature of civilization, which dominates so much of the modern surface world, simply doesn't reach into the depths. Even the sounds of marine life change character as you descend. Near the surface, where light penetrates and photosynthesis is possible, life is abundant and often noisy. Fish grunt and croak. Dolphins whistle and click. Whales sing their long, haunting songs that carry for hundreds of miles. But in the deep ocean, where food is scarce and encounters are rare, vocalization becomes a luxury that few creatures can afford. Energy is precious in the deep, and making sound requires energy. Most deep-sea creatures live in silence, moving through their world with barely a whisper. What you're left with, then, as you sink deeper into the ocean's embrace, is something approaching true silence. Not the absence of all sound, perhaps, but the absence of any sound that matters, any sound that demands attention or creates distraction. The occasional groan of settling sediment. The faint, barely audible movement of water so slow it takes hours to travel a few meters. The distant, muffled echoes of events happening far away and filtered through kilometers of water until they're more felt than heard. This silence is not empty. That's the paradox, the beautiful contradiction that defines the deep ocean's acoustic landscape. Silence, in human experience, often feels like a void, like something missing. We fill silence with music or conversation or the hum of machines because we find it uncomfortable, unnerving, too much like loneliness. But the silence of the deep ocean is different. It's full. It's rich. It's a presence, not an absence. It's the sound of a world that has no need for noise, a world that has found peace not by eliminating sound, but by eliminating the need for sound. Consider what sound actually is for a moment. Sound is information traveling through space, carried by vibrations, announcing events and presences. A footstep tells you someone is approaching. A voice tells you someone is speaking. A rustling tells you something is moving through leaves. Sound is how the world communicates its activity to you, how it keeps you informed of what's happening around you even when you can't see it. Your brain has evolved to process this information constantly, unconsciously, building a three-dimensional map of your surroundings based partly on acoustic cues. But in the deep ocean, there are no footsteps because there's no ground to step on. There are no voices because vocalization is too expensive energetically for most creatures to afford. There's no rustling because there are no leaves, no vegetation, no dense surfaces for things to brush against. The sources of sound that fill terrestrial and surface environments simply don't exist here. And so the acoustic information your brain is built to process, the constant stream of sonic data it expects to receive, stops flowing. The channel goes quiet, not because something is wrong, but because there's genuinely nothing to report. In this absence of acoustic information, something interesting happens to awareness. Without sounds to track and interpret, without the constant low-level work of monitoring your acoustic environment, a certain kind of mental space opens up. It's as if part of your brain that's usually occupied with listening can finally rest, can stop its vigilant monitoring, can release the subtle tension that comes from always being ready to hear the next sound and respond to it. This is different from the silence you might experience with noise-canceling headphones or in a soundproof room. Those silences feel artificial, imposed, like you've blocked out the world rather than entered a naturally quiet space. They can feel unsettling because your brain knows something is wrong, knows that the normal flow of acoustic information has been interrupted artificially. But the silence of the deep ocean is natural, original, the default state of a place where sound sources are genuinely rare. It's not that sound has been removed, it's that sound was never abundant here to begin with. And your body recognizes this difference somehow, recognizes the difference between imposed silence and natural quietness. The former can create anxiety, a sense that you've cut yourself off from necessary information. The latter creates peace, a sense that you've found a place where information is simply not needed, where vigilance can finally, safely be released. Imagine lying here now, your body sinking deeper into rest, and imagine that you're wrapped in this silence. Not the silence of an empty room, where every small sound stands out and draws attention, but the silence of the deep ocean, where sound itself has become so rare and so soft that your mind stops listening for it. You stop straining to hear. You stop waiting for the next noise to break the quiet. You simply rest in the silence, allowing it to fill the spaces in your mind that are usually occupied by distraction and worry and the constant processing of auditory information. Your ears, evolved to detect the subtlest sounds, slowly begin to relax. There's nothing to hear, nothing to respond to. The constant vigilance that sound demands, the way your brain automatically tracks and categorizes and responds to every noise in your environment, begins to ease. The silence of the deep ocean gives your mind permission to stop working so hard, to stop paying such close attention, to simply rest. And in that rest, in that release from the burden of constant auditory processing, something deeper begins to emerge. Not boredom, not emptiness, but a kind of spaciousness, a mental quietness that mirrors the physical quietness of the deep ocean. Your thoughts, which usually rush and tumble like waves at the surface, begin to slow. The internal chatter, the endless stream of commentary and planning and worrying that fills your waking hours, begins to soften and fade. You're sinking not just into physical rest, but into mental stillness, into a state where thoughts become occasional and gentle rather than constant and demanding. This is the second gift of the deep ocean. The gift of silence, so complete that it quiets not just your ears but your mind. The gift of a world where nothing speaks, nothing calls, nothing demands your attention. A world where you can simply be suspended in stillness, held by silence, drifting deeper with every breath. On the surface of the world, where most of us spend our lives, time moves at a pace we all recognize and accept. Seconds tick by in steady rhythm. Minutes accumulate into hours. Days follow nights in predictable cycles. Clocks measure and divide and organize our experience into manageable units. We live by schedules and deadlines and appointments, by the expectation that time will continue its forward march at the same reliable speed it always has. But in the deep ocean, time operates differently, not in a supernatural or mystical way, but in a way that's rooted in biology and physics and the simple realities of life in an environment where energy is scarce and motion is costly. In the deep ocean, time doesn't disappear, but it stretches, it lengthens, it loses its urgency and its insistence. Things happen more slowly here, so much more slowly that if you tried to measure deep sea life by the clocks we use on land, you'd find yourself waiting hours or days or sometimes years for events that would take minutes at the surface. Part of this has to do with metabolism. All living things require energy to survive, and the rate at which they use that energy, their metabolic rate, determines how fast they live. Animals with high metabolic rates burn through energy quickly. They move fast, think fast, breed fast. Their lives are compressed into short, intense bursts of activity. Animals with low metabolic rates, by contrast, do everything more slowly. They move less, require less food, live longer, and experience time in a fundamentally different way. In the deep ocean, where food is scarce and every calorie counts, natural selection has favored creatures with extraordinarily slow metabolisms. These animals don't rush, because rushing would be fatal. Every movement costs energy, and energy is the most precious resource in the deep. So they've evolved to move as little as possible, to exist in a state of near stillness, to stretch every bit of food they manage to find across weeks or months of survival. Their heartbeats are slow. Their breathing, if they breathe at all in any recognizable way, is slow. Their thoughts, if we could call them thoughts, must unfold at a pace we can barely comprehend. Some deep-sea fish have metabolic rates so low that they barely qualify as active animals. They drift rather than swim, carried by currents too slow for humans to perceive, expending almost no energy at all. Their muscles are weak, their movements minimal, their entire existence calibrated toward doing as little as possible for as long as possible. They might move a few meters in an hour. They might feed once a month. They might grow so slowly that you'd need to watch them for years to notice any change in size. This isn't laziness. It's not a deficiency or a failure to thrive. It's adaptation, elegant and perfect. In a world where food might not arrive for weeks or months at a time, where the next meal is never guaranteed, the only way to survive is to need almost nothing. These creatures have solved the problem of scarcity not by becoming better hunters or faster swimmers, but by becoming slower, quieter, more patient than any surface animal could ever afford to be. The result is a world where time, in any meaningful biological sense, has slowed to a crawl. Reproduction cycles that take days or weeks in surface species take years in the deep. Some deep-sea fish don't reach sexual maturity until they're decades old. Some take so long to grow that scientists measuring them across multiple expeditions struggle to detect any change. The youngest individual of a certain deep-sea species might be older than you, older than your parents, older than your grandparents, still growing, still developing, still making its slow way toward adulthood at a pace that makes glaciers look hurried. Even the water itself moves slowly here. At the surface, currents race and swirl, driven by wind and tides and the rotation of the earth. But in the deep ocean, beyond the influence of wind and weather, currents slow to a gentle, almost imperceptible drift. Water moves, yes, but it moves the way continents move, with such patience and such gradual progress that you could sit and watch for a lifetime without seeing any obvious change. A parcel of water might take decades to travel from one side of an ocean basin to the other. Sediment falling through the water column might take months to reach the bottom, drifting downward so slowly that its descent is measured not in meters per minute, but in meters per day. This is where geological time and biological time begin to overlap, to merge into a single, unified pace that has no equivalent on the surface. On land, biological processes happen on timescales we can observe and relate to. Trees grow over years. Animals reproduce over months or weeks. Even the slowest land creatures, the tortoises and the trees, live on timescales we can comprehend and measure within a human lifetime. But in the deep ocean, the line between biology and geology begins to blur. A coral growing on a seamount might add a few millimeters of calcium carbonate per year. A deep-sea vent community might remain stable for decades. The creatures that live here exist almost in the same temporal framework as the rocks they rest on, changing so slowly that the distinction between living and non-living becomes almost philosophical. Think about what this means for a moment. Think about what it would be like to exist in a state where time has lost its usual meaning, where minutes and hours are irrelevant, where the only rhythms that matter unfold over months and years and lifetimes. There's something deeply restful about this idea, something that speaks to a part of us that's exhausted by the relentless pace of modern life, by the expectation that we should always be doing, always moving, always producing, always rushing toward the next thing. The deep ocean offers a counterpoint to all of that. It offers a vision of existence where time stretches so far that it ceases to feel like pressure, where the concept of now loses its urgency because now lasts for hours or days or weeks. In the deep ocean, there are no deadlines, no schedules, no hurry. Things happen when they happen, and until they happen, there's only waiting, and the waiting itself becomes a kind of existence, a kind of life. As you lie here now, as your body continues to sink deeper into rest, imagine that you're absorbing this quality of the deep ocean. Imagine that time itself is beginning to slow for you, not in a way that makes you anxious or impatient, but in a way that makes everything feel more spacious, more gentle, more forgiving. The seconds between your breaths lengthen. The space between your thoughts widens. The urgency that drives so much of waking life begins to dissolve, leaving only the present moment stretched and softened and filled with a patience you usually can't afford. There's no rush to fall asleep, no deadline for rest, no pressure to accomplish anything, even the accomplishment of sleeping. You're simply here, suspended in this moment, and this moment can last as long as it needs to. Time has slowed, and that's exactly as it should be. This is the third gift of the deep ocean, the gift of time that has forgotten how to rush, the gift of a world where patience isn't a virtue, but a necessity, where slowness isn't a failure, but a way of being. The gift of realizing that you too can slow down, can stretch your sense of time, can exist in a state where every moment feels deep and full and unhurried. We spend our lives surrounded by light. From the moment the sun rises until long after it sets, we navigate a world illuminated by natural and artificial sources. We take light for granted, assume it as a baseline condition of existence. Our eyes, our most relied upon sense, are built to detect light, to translate photons into images, to create the rich visual tapestry we call sight. Without light, we feel blind, vulnerable, disoriented. But in the deep ocean, light is not a given. It's not a baseline. It's not even a memory. At depths below about 1,000 meters, sunlight has been completely absorbed by the water above. Every last photon that left the sun's surface traveled 93 million miles through space, entered the ocean, and began its descent through the water column, has been captured and converted into heat, or used by photosynthetic organisms, or simply scattered into non-existence. By the time you reach the deep ocean, you've entered a realm of absolute darkness, a darkness so complete and so total that no human has ever experienced its equivalent on land. This isn't the darkness of a moonless night, where your eyes slowly adjust and begin to pick out faint shapes and shadows. This isn't the darkness of a closed room, where a sliver of light under the door or the faint glow of electronics provides just enough illumination to orient yourself. This is perfect darkness, utter darkness, the kind of darkness where you could hold your hand inches from your face and see nothing, where the concept of sight itself becomes meaningless because there's nothing, absolutely nothing, for eyes to detect. For humans who rely so heavily on vision, this kind of darkness feels alien and unsettling. We're not adapted for it. Our eyes, sophisticated as they are, require light to function. In darkness, they're useless, and we feel diminished, vulnerable, cut off from the primary way we understand and interact with our environment. But for the creatures of the deep ocean, darkness isn't a handicap or a limitation. It's simply the environment they've always known. It's home. These creatures have never seen light, never relied on it, never built their lives around the expectation of visual information. They've evolved in darkness, and they've become exquisitely adapted to a world where sight, in the way we understand it, doesn't exist. Many don't have functional eyes at all. The energy cost of maintaining eyes that can't see anything useful is too high. So, natural selection has gradually reduced or eliminated them entirely. What remains are sometimes just remnants, tiny, non-functional eye spots, like evolutionary echoes of a sense that's no longer needed. But this doesn't mean these creatures are lost or helpless. Far from it. They navigate their dark world with senses we can barely imagine. Some detect vibrations in the water, feeling the subtle movements of potential prey or predators through specialized sensory organs. Some use chemical cues, following trails of scent that drift through the water like invisible threads. Some detect electrical fields, sensing the faint bioelectric signals that all living things produce. Some combine multiple senses into a rich perceptual landscape that has nothing to do with light or vision, a way of experiencing the world that's completely alien to surface-dwelling creatures. Darkness in the deep ocean isn't an obstacle to overcome. It's a habitat, It's a defining feature of the environment as fundamental as water itself. And the creatures that live here have made peace with it. They've done more than made peace with it. They've embraced it. They've evolved to thrive in it. They've discovered ways to exist, to find food, to reproduce, to live full and complete lives without ever seeing a single photon of light. There's something profound and almost liberating about this idea. We spend so much of our lives focused on seeing, on looking, on visual information. We consume images constantly through screens and windows and mirrors. We judge the world primarily through our eyes. We say, "I see," when we mean, "I understand." Vision has become so central to human experience that we struggle to imagine existence without it. But the deep ocean creatures remind us that sight is just one way of perceiving, one tool among many, and not necessarily the most important one. In their world, other senses dominate: touch and taste, and the detection of subtle chemical gradients become primary. The world is perceived not as a collection of shapes and colors, but as a complex web of sensations and signals that have nothing to do with light. And here's the truly calming part, the aspect of this that speaks directly to the process of falling asleep. When you close your eyes, when you surrender to darkness, you're actually stepping closer to the experience of the deep ocean. You're letting go of the dominance of sight and allowing other forms of perception to come forward. The feeling of weight and support from your bed, the subtle sounds of your environment, the sensation of air moving in and out of your lungs, the gentle rhythm of your heartbeat. These things were always there, but when your eyes are open and feeding your brain a constant stream of visual data, they fade into the background. In darkness, with your eyes closed, these other sensations become more prominent, more noticeable, more central to your experience. You begin to perceive your body and your environment in a different way, a way that's less visual and more felt, more intuitive, more immediate. You're experiencing a tiny echo of what it's like to be a deep-sea creature, navigating the world without light, relying on senses you usually ignore. Darkness, then, is not something to fear. It's not emptiness or void or absence. It's a different kind of presence, a different mode of being. In the deep ocean, darkness is shelter. It's the medium in which life unfolds. It's the baseline condition, the norm, the default state of existence. And the creatures that live there don't experience it as deprivation. They experience it as simply the way things are, the way things have always been, the way things should be. As you rest here now, as your eyes remain closed or grow heavier with each passing moment, allow yourself to appreciate the darkness, not as something temporary that will end when morning comes, but as something valuable in its own right. Darkness is where rest happens, where sleep unfolds, where the mind stops processing visual information and begins to drift into other states of consciousness. Darkness is where dreams live, where the subconscious emerges, where the boundary between waking and sleeping becomes soft and permeable. The deep ocean, wrapped in its perfect darkness, offers you permission to embrace this state, to stop fighting the darkness, to stop seeing it as something to overcome or escape, to accept it, welcome it, rest in it. Because darkness, as the deep ocean knows, is not the opposite of life. It's just a different kind of environment, one where different rules apply, where sight gives way to other forms of perception, where the constant visual noise of the surface world fades into blessed, restful silence. This is the fourth gift of the deep ocean, the gift of darkness as a habitat, not a threat. The gift of learning to perceive without seeing, to exist without light, to rest in the knowledge that darkness is where some of the most profound forms of life and consciousness unfold. The gift of closing your eyes and discovering that what you've surrendered is less important than what you've gained. When we think about pressure, we usually think about stress, burden, weight bearing down in ways that feel crushing or overwhelming. Pressure, in everyday language, is something negative, something to be relieved or escaped. We talk about being under pressure, feeling the pressure. It's associated with discomfort, with strain, with the fear of collapse. But in the deep ocean, pressure is simply a fact of existence. It's not good or bad. It's not something to resist or overcome. It's just there, constant and unavoidable, a fundamental property of the environment that shapes everything about how life exists and evolves. And strangely, beautifully, pressure in the deep ocean is not destructive. It doesn't crush life into non-existence. Instead, it becomes the very structure within which life organizes itself, the framework that holds everything in place. As you descend into the ocean, every 10 meters of depth adds roughly 1 atmosphere of pressure. At the surface, you experience 1 atmosphere, the weight of the air pressing down from above. At 10 meters, you experience 2 atmospheres. At 100 meters, 11 atmospheres. By the time you reach the deepest parts of the ocean, depths of 10 or 11,000 meters, the pressure exceeds 1,000 atmospheres. It's more than 8 tons per square inch, enough to instantly crush any surface object that isn't specifically designed to withstand it. A styrofoam cup lowered to these depths will be compressed into something the size of a thimble. A submarine not built to withstand the pressure would implode in milliseconds. Even the water itself behaves differently under such extreme pressure. Its density increases, its properties change. The laws of physics don't break down, but they express themselves in ways that seem alien to surface-dwelling creatures. And yet, life exists, but thrives, not despite the pressure, but in many ways because of it. Because, while pressure would destroy any organism adapted to surface conditions, organisms that evolved in the deep have never known anything else. Their bodies are built for this environment. Their cells function normally at pressures that would tear apart surface cells. Their proteins maintain their structure and function under conditions that would denature surface proteins into useless tangles. The key is that these creatures don't have air spaces in their bodies. Air compresses under pressure. That's what causes the crushing. But most deep-sea creatures are made of water and soft tissue, materials that are nearly incompressible. Water at the surface has almost the same density as water at depth. A body made primarily of water experiences the pressure evenly, inside and out, and doesn't get compressed or crushed. The pressure is everywhere, uniform, constant, and the body simply exists within it without resistance. There's something oddly comforting about this if you allow yourself to feel it. The pressure that would seem crushing and fatal to us is, to these creatures, simply normal. It's the medium of their existence, the baseline condition. They're not fighting against it. They're not struggling under its weight. They're held by it, stabilized by it, shaped by it in ways that make them perfectly suited to their environment. Think about what stability means in this context. On land, stability comes from having a solid surface beneath you, from resting on something firm that won't give way. But in the ocean, there is no solid surface for most creatures. They're suspended in water, in three-dimensional space, where there is no up or down in any absolute sense, only the directions defined by gravity and buoyancy. In such an environment, how does a creature maintain its sense of position, its sense of place? For deep-sea creatures, pressure provides that stability. It's constant, uniform, unchanging. Unlike currents which can shift, unlike temperature which can vary, unlike food availability which is unpredictable, pressure at a given depth is absolutely reliable. If you're at 4,000 meters, the pressure is a specific, precise value, and it will be that value today, tomorrow, a million years from now. This constancy allows creatures to calibrate their entire physiology around a single fixed point, to build their bodies and metabolisms around the certainty of pressure. The proteins in their cells, the membranes that surround those cells, the fluids that fill their tissues, all of these are structured to function optimally at the specific pressure of their depth. Change that pressure significantly, and everything falls apart. The proteins unfold or misfold. The membranes become too fluid or too rigid. The enzymes that catalyze metabolic reactions stop working efficiently. The creature doesn't just become uncomfortable. It loses the fundamental ability to maintain its living processes. This is why bringing a deep-sea creature to the surface is almost always fatal. It's not that the surface is hostile in any obvious way. The water is still water. The temperature might actually be warmer and more comfortable by mammalian standards. There's more oxygen available, but the pressure is wrong. And for a creature whose entire biology is calibrated to high pressure, the absence of that pressure is catastrophic. It's like removing the foundation from a building and expecting the building to stand on its own. Without the pressure holding everything in the proper configuration, the structure collapses. But here's what's remarkable. What speaks to something deep about the nature of adaptation and acceptance. These creatures don't experience the pressure as something they have to endure or overcome. They don't wake up every day, if they can be said to wake up at all, thinking, I must survive this crushing weight. The pressure is simply part of their reality, as fundamental and unremarkable as air is to us. They don't notice it any more than you notice the air pressure at sea level. It's just there, has always been there, will always be there. And their entire existence is built around its presence. In fact, if a deep-sea creature could think and speak, it might find our surface environment terrifying. The near absence of pressure, from their perspective, would feel like being in a vacuum, like nothing is holding them together, like they're about to fly apart or dissolve into nothing. Our normal is their nightmare. Their normal is our impossibility. But both are just different calibrations, different baselines, different ways of existing that work perfectly well in their respective environments. In fact, many deep-sea creatures would die if you brought them to the surface, not because the surface is inherently hostile, but because the sudden drop in pressure would be fatal. Their bodies are calibrated for deep pressure. Remove that pressure and they lose their structure, their stability, their ability to function. The pressure isn't crushing them. It's holding them together, defining their form, giving their existence a kind of solidity that they couldn't maintain without it. This is a powerful metaphor, though we don't need to state it explicitly or draw obvious parallels. The idea that pressure, properly distributed and fully accepted, can be stabilizing rather than destructive is something the deep ocean demonstrates with elegant simplicity. When you're built for pressure, when you've never known anything else, when your entire structure is designed around it, pressure doesn't feel like weight. It feels like support. Think about your own body now, resting wherever you are. You're under pressure too. The weight of the air above you, the weight of gravity pulling you down, the weight of your own body mass pressing into the surface beneath you. But you don't feel crushed by this. You feel supported. The pressure of gravity is what allows you to rest, what allows you to feel solid and stable and real. Without it, you'd be floating, untethered, lost. In the same way, the creatures of the deep ocean experience their extreme pressure not as burden, but as context, as the fundamental backdrop against which their lives unfold. They're not suffering under it. They're existing within it, perfectly adapted, perfectly at peace. As you sink deeper into rest, as your body grows heavier and more relaxed, imagine that you're experiencing something like this. Not pressure in the painful, stressful sense, but pressure in the sense of support, of stability, of being held firmly and safely in place. The weight of your body pressing into your bed, the gentle pull of gravity keeping you anchored, the stillness that comes from not having to fight or resist or hold yourself up anymore. This is the pressure of rest, the pressure of letting go, the pressure of allowing yourself to be fully supported by something outside yourself, something that asks nothing of you except that you stop resisting and simply allow it to hold you. The deep ocean knows this kind of pressure intimately, has built entire ecosystems around it, has discovered that what seems crushing from the outside can feel perfectly natural from within. This is the fifth gift of the deep ocean, the gift of understanding pressure as support, not threat. The gift of learning that what holds you firmly in place might be exactly what you need, not something to escape, but something to surrender to. The gift of realizing that being held, even by forces you can't see or control, can be the most restful experience imaginable. If you were to descend into the deep ocean yourself, equipped with lights and cameras and all the technology that allows humans to visit these alien depths, one of the things you'd notice immediately is the absence of movement, or rather, the presence of movement. So slow, so subtle, so gradual that it barely registers as movement at all. The deep ocean is not a still life painting, frozen and unchanging. Things do move here. Water flows, sediment drifts, creatures swim, however rarely, but everything happens at a pace so unhurried that you could watch for hours and see almost nothing happen. The currents in the deep ocean are nothing like the currents at the surface. Surface currents, driven by wind and tides and the rotation of the earth, can move at several kilometers per hour, fast enough to carry floating objects across oceans, fast enough to be felt and seen and easily measured. But deep ocean currents, cut off from the surface forces that drive rapid motion, move at speeds measured in centimeters per hour. Sometimes slower. A deep current might take days to move a kilometer. It might take weeks to cross a small basin. It's moving, yes, but at a pace that makes glacial movement look swift. If you placed a dye marker in a deep ocean current, you might return hours later and find it almost exactly where you left it. Perhaps shifted a few meters in some direction you can barely detect. This isn't stagnation. It's not stillness. It's just movement that operates on timescales completely removed from human perception. The water is flowing, carrying dissolved gases and nutrients and microscopic particles, but it's flowing with the patience of geological processes, with the unhurried certainty of something that has all the time in the world. The same is true for sediment falling through the water column. Tiny particles of organic matter, the remains of dead plankton, or fecal pellets from surface-dwelling creatures begin their descent from the surface layers toward the ocean floor thousands of meters below. You might imagine this as a quick drop, like dust falling through air. But water is denser than air and these particles are tiny, and their descent is opposed by water resistance at every moment meant at all. They fall, but they fall slowly. A particle might take days or weeks to reach the bottom, drifting downward in a slow spiral, occasionally caught by currents and carried sideways, eventually settling onto the abyssal plane in a gentle, almost imperceptible accumulation. This rain of organic matter from above is called marine snow, and though the name evokes something gentle and continuous, the reality is even more subdued. The particles are so small and so sparse that if you were there watching, you'd barely see anything falling at all. Occasionally, a tiny fleck might drift past your viewport, barely visible, gone before you could focus on it. That's it. That's the only indication that anything is moving, that matter is transferring from surface to depth, that the ocean is engaged in one of its most important processes. Even the creatures themselves move slowly. Some deep-sea fish, with their weak muscles and low metabolic rates, barely swim at all. They drift, allowing currents to carry them, expending energy only when absolutely necessary to adjust position or capture prey. A fish might hover in the same cubic meter of water for hours, barely moving, waiting for something edible to drift within reach. When it does move, the motion is languid, economical, more of a gentle glide than a swim. There's no darting, no chasing, no sudden bursts of speed. Speed costs energy, and energy is something no deep-sea creature can afford to waste. This creates a world where events unfold so gradually that the concept of happening becomes almost meaningless. Things happen, yes, but they happen over hours and days and weeks. A predator might wait days for a meal. A piece of whalebone sinking to the seafloor might take months to reach bottom. A current might shift direction over the course of weeks. Nothing is abrupt. Nothing is sudden. Everything has the quality of slow motion extended to its ultimate extreme. And yet, there's something happening here that's deeply important, deeply essential. This slowness isn't laziness or inefficiency. It's the only way life can exist in an environment where resources are so limited, where energy is so precious. By slowing down, by moving as little as possible, by spreading actions out over vast stretches of time, deep-sea life has found a way to persist in conditions that would seem impossibly harsh to surface creatures. There's a lesson here, though, again, we don't need to make it explicit. The idea that survival sometimes requires slowing down, that persistence comes not from constant activity, but from patient, economical motion, that you can accomplish what you need to accomplish without hurry or urgency. The deep ocean proves that a slow life is not a failed life. It's just a different pace, a different rhythm, one that prioritizes endurance over speed, survival over performance. As you rest here now, imagine that you're absorbing this quality. Imagine that the movements of your body, the gentle rise and fall of your breathing, the slow, steady beat of your heart are happening at the same unhurried pace as the movements in the deep ocean. There's no need to speed up, no need to do anything faster or more efficiently. Every breath can take its time. Every heartbeat can arrive in its own moment. Every thought can drift through your mind at whatever pace it chooses. You're not frozen. You're not stuck. You're simply moving at a pace that honors rest, that honors the need for your body and mind to slow down and recover. Like the deep ocean currents, you're flowing, but you're flowing so slowly that it feels almost like stillness. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what you need. This is the sixth gift of the deep ocean, the gift of movement, so slow it becomes indistinguishable from rest. The gift of understanding that action and stillness are not opposites but exist on a continuum. and somewhere in the middle is a pace that allows life to persist without exhaustion. The gift of permission to move through your own rest at whatever glacial, patient, unhurried pace feels natural. In the absolute darkness of the deep ocean, where not a single photon of sunlight penetrates, there exists a phenomenon that seems almost magical, almost impossible. Light returns. Not sunlight, not reflected light, not any light from an external source, but light created by life itself, bioluminescence. The production of light through chemical reactions within living organisms. And while bioluminescence exists in some surface creatures, it reaches its fullest expression, its most widespread and varied forms, in the deep ocean, where it's not an interesting quirk but a fundamental part of existence. Most deep-sea creatures can produce light. Not all, but most. Fish, squid, jellyfish, crustaceans, even bacteria, all have evolved the ability to generate their own illumination in this lightless world. They do it for different reasons. Some use it to lure prey, dangling a glowing appendage like a fishing lure to attract smaller creatures. Some use it for communication, flashing patterns that signal identity or availability to potential mates. Some use it as a defense, creating sudden bright flashes to startle predators or releasing clouds of glowing particles as a distraction. But we're not going to catalog these uses or dissect the biochemistry of how bioluminescence works. That would be informative, perhaps, but it would miss the point of what bioluminescence means in the context of rest and sleep and the deep ocean as a place of profound calm. What matters here, what speaks to the sleepy mind drifting toward unconsciousness, is not the mechanism, but the experience, the feeling, the image. Imagine absolute darkness, not dim light, not twilight, but perfect blackness. You've been floating in this darkness for hours, suspended in water, surrounded by nothing you can see. Your eyes, even if they're open, detect nothing. There are no shapes, no shadows, no gradations of gray. Just black, complete, total, and then, somewhere in the distance, so far away you can't judge the distance, a tiny point of light appears. Blue-green, faint, barely visible. It glows for a moment, perhaps a second, perhaps less, and then it's gone. Darkness returns. You wait. Nothing happens. And then, minutes later, or perhaps seconds, time has become hard to judge. Another light appears. Different location. Same brief glow. Then, these lights don't illuminate anything. They're too small, too brief, too isolated. They don't cast shadows or reveal forms. They simply exist. Momentary points of light in infinite darkness, appearing and disappearing with no obvious pattern, no regularity, no predictability. Sometimes, two lights appear almost simultaneously in different locations. Sometimes, minutes pass with no lights at all. Sometimes a light moves, tracing a short path through the dark before vanishing. Sometimes a light pulses, brightening and dimming several times before disappearing completely. You have no idea what these lights are. You can't see the creatures producing them. You can't judge their size or their distance. All you see are the lights themselves, tiny ephemeral points of bioluminescence, each one a small announcement of presence. I am here. I exist. And then the darkness reclaims them and they're gone. There's something deeply calming about this image if you allow yourself to sink into it. These lights ask nothing of you. They don't demand attention or interpretation. They're not trying to communicate with you or show you anything. They're just there, briefly, and then not there, like thoughts drifting through your mind as you fall asleep. They appear, they glow, they fade, and then there's only darkness again, and that's perfectly fine. This is what bioluminescence offers in the deep ocean. Not illumination in any useful sense, but punctuation, tiny moments of visibility in an otherwise invisible world. Reminders that life exists here, that things are happening, but that those things are brief and quiet and don't disturb the overwhelming sense of stillness and darkness that defines the environment. As you rest here now, as your mind begins to drift, imagine these lights appearing and disappearing in your inner vision. Not bright lights, not lights that wake you or demand attention, but soft, distant glows that appear for a moment and then fade back into darkness. They might be thoughts, they might be fragments of dreams beginning to form. They might be nothing at all, just the random firing of neurons as your brain transitions from wakefulness into sleep. Whatever they are, let them be like bioluminescence in the deep ocean. Let them appear without trying to hold on to them. Let them glow briefly and then disappear without chasing after them or trying to understand what they mean. Let the darkness reclaim them and rest in the darkness until the next small light appears. And then let that one go too. Bioluminescence in the deep ocean doesn't try to banish the darkness. It accepts the darkness as the baseline, the default, the normal state. The lights are just tiny, temporary exceptions, brief moments of visibility that make the darkness feel deeper and more complete when they fade. And that's beautiful. That's exactly what you need as you drift towards sleep. Not a constant barrage of light and stimulus, but occasional gentle flickers that appear and disappear without disrupting the fundamental darkness, the fundamental restfulness of the deep. This is the seventh gift of the deep ocean, the gift of lights that don't try to illuminate, that appear and vanish without struggle or effort. The gift of bioluminescence as a metaphor for thoughts and sensations as you fall asleep, things that glow briefly in your awareness and then fade back into the darkness of unconsciousness. The gift of learning to let go of each small light as it appears, trusting that the darkness will remain steady and reliable, holding you as you sink deeper. If you could stand on the abyssal plain, the vast, flat floor of the deep ocean that covers much of the Earth's seabed, and if you could see in all directions, despite the darkness, you would witness something that the human eye almost never encounters. True flatness, true vastness, true monotony extending in every direction until it curves beyond the horizon. The abyssal plain is one of the least varied landscapes on Earth. It's not perfectly flat, of course. There are small rises and depressions, occasional rocks or biological formations, but compared to almost any land surface, compared to mountains and valleys and coastlines and forests, the abyssal plain is extraordinarily uniform. It's a layer of sediment accumulated over millions of years, smoothing out the underlying topology, creating a surface that changes so gradually over such vast distances that you could walk for days, if walking were possible here, without seeing any significant change in your surroundings. The sediment itself is monotonous, fine particles, mostly the remains of microscopic plankton shells and dust blown from land and dissolved minerals, accumulating at a rate of perhaps a few millimeters per 1,000 years. It's soft, undisturbed, except by the occasional tracks of creatures, covering everything like a blanket that's been settling slowly for eons. The color, if you could see it, would be a uniform gray-brown. The texture, consistent, the appearance, the same in every direction. If this sounds boring, That's because by surface standards, by human standards, it is. There's nothing to look at, nothing changes. If you took a photograph here and then moved a kilometer in any direction and took another photograph, you'd struggle to tell them apart. The landscape offers no landmarks, no variation, no visual interest whatsoever. It's the opposite of stimulation. It's the physical embodiment of monotony. And yet, there's something profound about this. Something that speaks to a deep human need we don't often acknowledge. The abyssal plane offers something almost no other environment can offer. It offers the complete absence of surprise. No sudden changes, no unexpected features, no threats emerging from behind rocks or over hills, because there are no rocks or hills. Just flatness, extending endlessly, unchanging, predictable, safe. For a mind constantly scanning for threats, constantly processing novelty, constantly alert to changes in the environment, this kind of monotony is deeply restful. There's nothing to monitor, nothing to track, nothing that requires attention or response. Your mind can finally stop its vigilant scanning because there's nothing to scan for. Everything is the same. Everything has been the same for millions of years. Everything will continue to be the same for millions of years to come. This uniformity is not a bug. It's a feature. In environments where change is constant, where novelty appears regularly, organisms evolve sophisticated systems for detecting and responding to that change. Pattern recognition becomes essential. Memory becomes crucial. The ability to distinguish between what's dangerous and what's safe, between what's edible and what's toxic, between what's significant and what can be ignored. All of these cognitive abilities develop because they improve survival in changing environments. But in an environment where nothing changes, where the landscape has been essentially identical for millions of years, where there are no patterns to recognize because there is no variation, to create patterns, those sophisticated cognitive systems become unnecessary. They're expensive to maintain, energetically costly, and they provide no benefit. So, in the deep ocean, life has evolved toward simplicity, toward minimal processing, toward existing in a state of near-permanent baseline, without the constant need to detect and respond to novelty. The abyssal plane is the physical embodiment of this principle. It offers no novelty, no surprises, no unexpected features that require attention or response. And in that complete absence of surprise, in that total predictability, there's a quality of rest that surface environments can never quite match. Because even in the quietest forest or the emptiest desert, there's always the possibility of change, always the chance that something might appear over the next hill or around the next rock. Your mind knows this and maintains its vigilance accordingly, always watching, always ready. But on the abyssal plane, that vigilance becomes pointless. There is no next hill. There is no next rock. There's just more flatness, extending in every direction, unchanging, unvarying, utterly predictable. And when your mind realizes this, when it accepts that there truly is nothing to watch for, it can finally release that vigilance completely. Not just reduce it or relax it, but release it entirely. Because in a place where nothing ever happens, where nothing has happened for millions of years, watchfulness serves no purpose. Imagine what it would feel like to exist in such a place, not for a few minutes or hours, but for years, for generations, for your entire existence, never encountering surprise, never having to respond to the unexpected, never experiencing that little jolt of alertness that comes when something appears in your peripheral vision, or when a sound breaks the silence. Just endless sameness, stretching from birth to death, utterly reliable, utterly predictable, utterly monotonous. For modern humans, accustomed to constant stimulation, this sounds like a nightmare. We seek out novelty, crave new experiences, build entire industries around entertainment and distraction and the prevention of boredom. The idea of unchanging monotony feels like a kind of death, a waste of the precious and limited time we have. But the deep ocean offers a different perspective. It suggests that monotony is not suffering, that sameness is not deprivation, that an environment without surprise or change or stimulation is not a prison, but potentially, paradoxically, a kind of freedom. Freedom from the constant work of processing novelty, of responding to change, of staying alert for the next thing. Freedom to simply exist, suspended in endless sameness, without the burden of having to adapt or respond or grow or change. This is the landscape of true rest, of complete mental disengagement. The abyssal plane doesn't stimulate, it doesn't interest, it doesn't engage. It simply exists, vast and unchanging, offering nothing to distract the mind from its own internal processes or from the gentle drift toward unconsciousness. Imagine lying here now, and imagine that your mind's eye is resting on this landscape, not actively looking, just aware of flatness, of uniformity, of endless sameness. There are no features to focus on, no details to examine, no changes to track, just flat, just gray, just endless. And in that endless monotony, your mind finds permission to stop working so hard, to stop searching for pattern and meaning and danger, to simply rest in the knowledge that there's nothing here that requires your attention. This is a kind of mental white noise, but not the kind that masks other sounds. It's more like visual white noise, a field of uniform non-information that allows your mind to stop processing visual input, because there's nothing meaningful to process. And in that cessation, in that release from the constant work of visual interpretation, rest deepens. The abyssal plane, in its vast and empty monotony, offers a vision of a world where nothing happens. And that's exactly as it should be, where change is so slow and so gradual that it doesn't register on any time scale you can relate to, where stimulation is absent, and that absence is not a lack, but a gift, where your mind can finally stop its endless scanning and searching and simply be suspended over endless flatness, held by monotony, released from the burden of novelty. This is the eighth gift of the deep ocean, the gift of landscape so monotonous it becomes a kind of meditation, a field of non-stimulation that allows your mind to disengage from its constant processing. The gift of realizing that sometimes what you need is not beauty or interest or variety, but simply flatness, emptiness, the absence of anything that demands attention. The gift of the abyssal plane as a mental state, a place of rest where nothing changes and nothing needs to change. In the deep ocean, encounters are rare, not occasional, not infrequent, rare. You could float in the deep ocean for hours, perhaps days, and see nothing alive except perhaps the occasional tiny flicker of bioluminescence in the distance. The deep is not crowded, it's not busy, it's not full of life in the way a coral reef or a kelp forest is full of life. Life exists here, yes, but it's spread out across such vast volumes of water that the space between living things is almost incomprehensibly large. Think about the math for a moment. The deep ocean, defined as waters deeper than 1,000 meters, makes up about 90% of the ocean's total volume. It's an enormous space, but the amount of life it contains is tiny compared to the surface layers. Most marine life depends on photosynthesis, either directly or indirectly, and photosynthesis requires light. In the deep, where there's no light, there's no photosynthesis, which means no primary production, which means no base of the food web. Everything that lives in the deep is either eating other deep creatures, which are themselves rare, or surviving on the slow rain of organic matter drifting down from the sunlit layers above. And that rain, as we discussed, is sparse. The result is a world where biomass density, the amount of living tissue per unit of water, is extraordinarily low. You might be in a cubic kilometer of water that contains only a handful of fish. You might swim through 10 cubic kilometers and encounter a single squid. The ocean is full, but the life within it is spread so thin that it might as well be empty. For the creatures that live here, this has profound implications. Encountering another living thing is not something that happens often. It's not something you can plan for or predict. Days might pass between sightings. Weeks might pass before a predator encounters prey. Months might pass before a creature looking for a mate finds another member of its species. And when encounters do happen, they're brief. They don't linger. There's no time to waste because the opportunity might not come again for a very long time. This creates a life defined by patience and punctuated by rare moments of intensity. Most of the time, nothing is happening. You're just existing, floating, or resting or moving slowly through the dark, conserving energy, waiting. And then, suddenly, something appears. Another creature, visible for just a few seconds, perhaps through bioluminescence or through some other sense. You respond if you can, if you have the energy, if the response is appropriate. And then the moment passes. The other creature is gone, and you return to waiting, to the baseline state of solitary existence that defines life in the deep. There's something profound about this rhythm, if you let yourself feel it. The idea that existence consists mostly of waiting, mostly of being alone, mostly of nothing happening, and that this is normal, sustainable, even peaceful, that the rare encounters, when they do happen, are brief and fleeting and not meant to last. That being alone is not loneliness, but simply the default state, the way things are, the condition you return to after every brief exception. In our surface lives, we're rarely truly alone. Even when physically isolated, we're connected through devices, through the constant hum of communication and information. Encounters with others are frequent, expected, sometimes overwhelming. We build our lives around constant contact, constant interaction. The idea of going days or weeks without encountering another person seems frightening, unnatural. But the deep ocean offers a different model. It shows that life can persist, even thrive in relative terms, with encounters that are rare and brief. That being alone is not something to fear or avoid, but something that can be embraced, accepted, even relied upon. That the rarity of encounters makes them more meaningful, more significant, not something to take for granted or consume casually. As you lie here in the darkness, as your mind drifts further from waking consciousness, you're experiencing something like this. The encounter with the day, with other people, with stimulation and information and interaction. That encounter has ended. It was brief in the grand scheme of things, and now you're returning to a more solitary state, a state where it's just you and your own internal experience. No external encounters required or expected. And that's exactly right. That's exactly what sleep is. It's the return to solitude, to the baseline state of being alone with yourself, of not engaging with the outside world, of existing in a space where encounters are not happening because you've withdrawn from the possibility of encounter. And there's nothing sad or lonely about this. It's rest, it's recovery, it's the state your body and mind need to return to regularly in order to process, integrate, restore. The deep ocean, with its rare encounters and its vast solitudes, reminds you that being alone is not failure. It's not absence. It's just a different state, one that has its own value, its own rightness. The encounters will come again when they're meant to come, when the time is right. But for now, you're in the vast space between encounters, and that space is peaceful, quiet, undemanding. This is the 9th gift of the deep ocean, the gift of understanding that encounters are meant to be rare, that most of existence is spent in solitude, and that this is not a problem, but a natural rhythm, the gift of releasing the expectation of constant contact and accepting the peace of being alone. The gift of recognizing that you're in the space between encounters right now, and that space is exactly where you need to be. There's a curious parallel between the structure of the ocean and the structure of sleep, one that becomes obvious once you start thinking about it. Both involve layers, zones, a descent from surface activity into progressively deeper states. Both involve a gradual transition from light and motion to darkness and stillness. Both involve letting go of the surface world and surrendering to something deeper, something that operates by different rules. The ocean has distinct zones defined by depth and light. The epipelagic zone, the sunlit surface layer, is where most activity happens. Light penetrates, photosynthesis occurs, life is abundant and active. Below that is the mesopelagic, the twilight zone, where light fades and life becomes less abundant. Below that is the bathopelagic, the midnight zone, where darkness is complete and life becomes rare. And below that, the abyssopelagic and hadopelagic zones, the deepest parts where pressure is extreme and life is sparse. Sleep has similar zones, though we call them stages. Stage 1 is light sleep, the transition from wakefulness, easily disrupted, still partly aware of your surroundings. Stage 2 is slightly deeper, where your body begins to relax more fully, but can still be awakened without too much difficulty. Stage 3 is deep sleep, slow wave sleep, where your brain activity slows dramatically and waking becomes harder. And then there's REM sleep, which is paradoxically more active in some ways, but still part of the deep sleep architecture that your body needs. The deeper you go into sleep, the further you move from the surface of consciousness. Your awareness of the external world diminishes. Sounds that would wake you from light sleep don't penetrate into deep sleep. Your body becomes more still, your muscles more relaxed, your breathing slows and deepens, your heart rate drops. You're descending just as surely as if you were sinking through water, moving from the busy, active, light-filled surface down into deeper, quieter, darker zones where different processes take over. There's something profound about this parallel that becomes clearer the more you think about it. Both the ocean and sleep involve a gradual transition, not a sudden switch. You don't go from fully awake to deeply asleep in an instant, any more than you could jump from the ocean surface directly to the abyssal plane. The transition takes time, moves through stages, requires a certain amount of letting go at each level before you can descend to the next. In the ocean, as you sink from the epipelagic zone where sunlight still penetrates and life is abundant, you enter the mesopelagic, the twilight zone. Here, light is fading but not gone. Shadows are still possible. Some visual information remains. It's dim hard to see clearly, but you're not yet in complete darkness. This is like stage 1 sleep, the transition zone where you're no longer fully conscious, but not yet deeply asleep. You can still hear sounds from your environment, can still be easily awakened, can still have some vague awareness of where you are and what's around you. Descend further into the bathypelagic, the midnight zone, and light disappears entirely. You've crossed a threshold into true darkness. Visual information is no longer available. You must rely on other senses, other ways of perceiving. This is like stage 2 and 3 sleep, where external awareness fades significantly, where sounds from the environment become muffled and less likely to wake you, where your brain activity shifts into different patterns characterized by slow waves rather than the rapid, alert patterns of waking consciousness. Go deeper still into the abyssopelagic and hadopelagic zones, the deepest parts of the ocean, where pressure is extreme and life is vanishingly rare, and you've entered a realm that has almost no connection to the surface world. What happens here is completely divorced from surface conditions. The weather doesn't matter. Day and night are meaningless. The only things that exist are the things that have adapted specifically for this depth. This is like deep, slow wave sleep, where your brain activity slows dramatically, where the processes of restoration and consolidation take over, where you're so far from waking consciousness that it would take significant effort or stimulation to bring you back. And just as the ocean has REM sleep, that paradoxical state where your brain becomes more active even though you're still deeply asleep, the ocean has its own seeming paradoxes. Hydrothermal vents in the deepest ocean host surprisingly abundant communities of life, oases of activity in an otherwise sparse environment. Bioluminescence creates flashes of light in places where light should be impossible. These don't contradict the overall character of the deep. They're just variations, exceptions that prove the rule, moments of unexpected activity that happen within the context of overwhelming stillness. Both sleep and the deep ocean are places of transformation as well. When you sleep, your brain doesn't just shut down. It engages in active processes of memory consolidation, moving information from short-term to long-term storage, strengthening neural connections that were formed during waking hours, pruning away unnecessary connections. Your body repairs tissues, builds muscle, releases growth hormones, regulates immune function. Sleep is not passive. It's actively restorative, engaged in work that can't happen while you're awake and using your brain and body for conscious activities. Similarly, the deep ocean is not dead or inactive. It's engaged in crucial work for the entire planet. It stores enormous amounts of carbon, keeping it out of the atmosphere where it would contribute to warming. It circulates nutrients, drawing them down from the surface and eventually returning them through upwelling. It hosts ecosystems that process organic matter and recycle it back into forms that can support life. The deep ocean is part of the planet's restorative processes, working quietly in the darkness to maintain balances that make surface life possible. In both cases, the surface is where you engage with the outside world. The surface of the ocean is where waves crash and ships travel, and sunlight fuels the productivity that feeds entire ecosystems. The surface of consciousness is where you think and plan and interact and respond to stimuli. It's necessary, vital, the place where life happens in the active sense. But the surface can't sustain you indefinitely. You can't stay at the surface forever. You need the deep. The ocean needs its depths where nutrients settle and currents carry matter and creatures exist in ways that aren't possible at the surface. And you need your deep sleep where restoration happens, where memories consolidate, where your body repairs itself, where processes unfold that can't happen while you're awake, and engaged with the world. The deep ocean and deep sleep are both places of letting go. When you descend into deep sleep, you let go of conscious control, of awareness, of the need to respond and react and maintain your vigilance. You surrender to unconsciousness, trusting that your body knows what to do, that the processes of rest and restoration will unfold without your supervision. When a particle of organic matter descends into the deep ocean, it lets go of the surface currents and winds and waves, surrendering to gravity and the slow currents of the deep, settling where it will according to forces beyond any conscious control. There's something deeply reassuring about this parallel. Sleep is not something you do. It's something you allow. It's a descent you permit rather than a state you create. You can't force yourself into deep sleep any more than you can force yourself to sink rapidly through water. You have to let go, have to stop resisting, have to trust that if you stop trying to stay at the surface, the natural processes of your body and brain will carry you downward into the depths you need. The deep ocean teaches this through its structure, through its layered zones that you pass through as you descend, each one quieter and darker and more still than the last. And sleep echoes this, stage by stage, each one taking you further from the surface of waking consciousness, deeper into the restorative states your body craves. As you rest here now, as you feel yourself drifting, recognize that you're in this process of descent. You've left the surface already, or you're in the process of leaving it. The light of full consciousness is fading. The sounds of the waking world are becoming muffled and distant. Your awareness of your body, of your surroundings, is softening. You're sinking, slowly and naturally, through the zones of sleep, letting each layer receive you and carry you deeper. You don't need to do anything to make this happen. You just need to not resist it, not fight it, not try to swim back up to the surface. Let gravity's natural rhythms do their work. Let the transition unfold at its own pace, layer by layer, zone by zone, deeper and deeper into the peaceful dark where true rest lives. This is the 10th gift of the deep ocean, the gift of recognizing the parallel between ocean depth and sleep depth, between zones of water and stages of rest, the gift of understanding that descent is natural, inevitable, something to surrender to rather than resist, the gift of trusting that if you let go at the surface, you will be carried safely to the depth. The numbers are astonishing when you think about them. More than 80% of the ocean remains unmapped, unobserved, unexplored. Vast regions of the deep have never been visited by human eyes or instruments. New species are discovered regularly, sometimes entire ecosystems that no one knew existed. Hydrothermal vents, which support complex communities of life in absolute darkness using chemicals rather than sunlight, weren't discovered until the late 1970s. And they've revolutionized our understanding of where and how life can exist. Who knows what else is down there waiting to be found? In our modern world, this kind of unknowing feels strange. We're accustomed to having answers, to information being available instantly, to the sense that everything has been cataloged and explained and made comprehensible. The idea that vast regions of our own planet remain essentially unknown, that there are places we literally cannot access or understand with current technology, creates a kind of cognitive dissonance. And yet, there's something deeply restful about accepting this unknowing. Not in the sense that we should stop trying to learn, but in the sense that admitting ignorance, acknowledging mystery, releases a particular kind of tension. The need to know everything, to understand everything, to have answers and explanations and control over every aspect of existence is exhausting. It's a burden that weighs on the modern mind. This expectation that knowledge should be complete, that mysteries should be solved, that the unknown should be conquered and cataloged. The deep ocean offers a counterpoint. It sits there, vast and dark and full of secrets, completely indifferent to our need to understand it. It doesn't care that we've only explored a tiny fraction of its volume. It doesn't care that our instruments fail under its pressure, that our lights barely penetrate its darkness, that our attempts to catalog and explain and comprehend run up against practical and theoretical limits. It just exists, mysterious and unknowable, and it will remain mysterious long after we're gone. There's a peace in accepting this, not the peace of giving up or the peace of apathy, but the peace of recognizing that you don't have to know everything, that you don't have to understand everything, that it's okay to live in a world that contains mysteries beyond your grasp. The deep ocean will keep its secrets whether you worry about them or not. Your ignorance of its depths doesn't diminish you or make you less valuable or indicate any kind of failure. It just means you're human, limited by the constraints of your biology and your technology and your brief span of time on this planet. And here's the profound part, the aspect that speaks directly to the process of falling asleep. Sleep itself is a mystery. We still don't fully understand why we sleep, why consciousness needs to periodically shut down, why the brain requires these extended periods of reduced activity. We know sleep is essential. We know what happens when we don't get enough of it, but we don't fully understand the mechanisms, the ultimate evolutionary reasons, the complete picture of what sleep accomplishes. And that's okay. You don't need to understand sleep in order to sleep. You don't need to know the neurological details or the biochemical processes or the evolutionary explanations. You just need to let it happen, to surrender to it, to accept that your body and brain know something you don't consciously know, and that they'll take care of the details while you rest. The same is true for the deep ocean. You don't need to understand it to appreciate it. You don't need to know what species live there, or how they survive, or what adaptations they've evolved. You can just accept that it exists, vast and mysterious, and let that mystery be enough. Let it be comforting rather than frustrating. Let it remind you that not everything needs to be known, explained, controlled. As you lie here in the darkness, as your thoughts slow and scatter, recognize that you're practicing a kind of letting go that mirrors the mystery of the deep ocean. You're releasing the need to know, to understand, to maintain conscious awareness and control. You're descending into your own internal mystery, the mystery of sleep, where consciousness dissolves and processes unfold that you'll never remember or understand. And that's perfectly fine. It's exactly as it should be. The deep ocean, unknowable and indifferent, gives you permission to not know, to not understand, to simply be in the presence of mystery without trying to solve it. And in that permission, rest deepens. This is the 11th gift of the deep ocean, the gift of accepting unknowing, of releasing the burden of complete understanding, the gift of recognizing that mystery is not a problem to solve, but a quality to rest in, the gift of learning from the deep ocean's vast, patient indifference to our need to comprehend it. As we begin this final part of our journey, as we prepare to rise gently from the depths without quite returning to the surface, it's important to recognize something about the structure of sleep, about the process you're in. Sleep doesn't end with a sudden jolt back to wakefulness, not if it's allowed to unfold naturally. Instead, it cycles. You descend into deep sleep, then rise partway toward waking, then descend again, up and down, deeper and shallower, following rhythms that your body knows instinctively. What we're doing now is mimicking one of those gentle rises, one of those moments when your awareness lifts slightly from the deepest zones, but doesn't break through to full consciousness. You're still asleep, or very close to it, but perhaps you're becoming aware in some dim way of your body, of your breathing, of the boundary between you and the bed beneath you. You're rising, but not to the surface. Not yet. Maybe not for hours. In the ocean, if you were to begin ascending from the abyssal plane, if you were to start moving upward through the water column after spending time in the deepest zones, the first thing you'd notice is that nothing changes immediately. The darkness remains absolute. The pressure remains enormous. The cold persists. You're moving upward, yes, rising slowly through the water, but you're still in the deep, still in a place where the surface world is irrelevant, where the rules of the deep still apply. As you continue upward, you'd eventually begin to notice subtle changes. The pressure would decrease, though it would take thousands of meters of ascent before the change became significant. The temperature might shift slightly. Very occasionally, you might see hints of bioluminescence more frequently than you did at the greatest depths, suggesting that life is slightly more abundant, though still rare, but you wouldn't see light. Not for a long time. Not until you'd risen well into the mesopelagic zone, the twilight zone, would the faintest hint of surface light begin to penetrate the darkness. And even then, it would be barely perceptible, more of a sense that the black has softened slightly than anything you could call light in any meaningful sense. This is the state you're in now, or approaching now. You've been in the deep, in the dark, in the quiet stillness that defines true rest. And now, perhaps, you're rising slightly, becoming minutely more aware, closer to consciousness than you were a few minutes ago. But you're still in the deep, still held by its darkness and silence and peace. The surface is still far above you, so far that you couldn't reach it even if you wanted to. And you don't want to. You're content here, in this liminal space between the deepest sleep and something slightly less deep, rising slowly but still submerged, still cradled by water, still free of the demands of the waking world. Your breathing continues, slow and steady. Your body remains still, heavy, relaxed. Your mind, if it's producing thoughts at all, produces them like bioluminescence, tiny flickering points of light that appear and disappear without consequence, without meaning, without the need to be followed or understood. You're drifting upward, perhaps, but the drift is so gradual that you barely notice it. You might rise a little and then sink again. You might hover at this depth for a while, neither ascending nor descending, simply suspended in the middle zones of consciousness. And this is exactly where you should be. Not rushing to wake up, not trying to stay in the deepest sleep possible, just allowing your body to follow its natural rhythms, to rise and fall through the depths as it needs to, following patterns established over millions of years of evolution, patterns that know what they're doing, even if you don't. The ocean doesn't force anything. A particle of marine snow doesn't actively swim toward the surface. A deep-sea creature doesn't actively push itself toward or away from any particular depth, unless it has a specific reason. They move with currents, with their own buoyancy, with the natural forces that act on them, and they arrive where they arrive without struggle. You're doing the same, moving through the zones of sleep without effort, without intention, allowing the currents of your own biology to carry you where you need to be. And if at some point those currents carry you back to full wakefulness, that's fine. That's natural. That's the completion of the cycle. But if they don't, if you remain submerged in the depths for the rest of the night, drifting through various zones, but never quite breaking the surface, that's also fine. That's also natural. There's no goal here except rest, no destination except wherever your body decides it needs to be. As you rest here in this in-between space, as you hover in the middle zones, neither fully conscious nor deeply unconscious, feel the water still holding you. Feel the darkness still surrounding you. Feel the silence still filling the spaces in your mind. You're rising, perhaps, but you're still in the ocean, still part of its vast, quiet, patient world. And you can stay here as long as you need. There's no rush to reach the surface, no schedule to keep, no expectation that you'll return to waking life at any particular time. The surface will be there whenever you reach it, and until you do, you're safe here, suspended in the middle depths, rising slowly if at all, held by the same forces that have held you all night. The deep ocean has taught you how to descend, how to let go, how to sink into darkness and stillness without fear. And now, it's showing you that rising doesn't have to be abrupt either, doesn't have to be a sudden return to all the noise and light and demands of surface life. You can rise gradually, imperceptibly, taking your time, allowing the transition to unfold naturally over hours if it needs to. This is the final gift of the deep ocean. The gift of understanding that returning from rest doesn't have to be violent or sudden. The gift of a slow rise that keeps you in the deep even as you move slightly upward. The gift of recognizing that you're still held, still supported, still safe even as you drift between depths. The gift of knowing that the surface will wait, that there's no hurry, that you can take as long as you need to complete your journey. The deep ocean continues to exist, whether you're in it or thinking about it or aware of it in any way. Right now, even as you rest here, the abyssal plains stretch flat and endless in the darkness. The rare creatures drift through their vast solitudes. The sediment continues its slow rain from surface to depth. The currents flow at their patient pace. The pressure holds everything in place. The darkness remains absolute. The silence persists. This world doesn't need you to witness it, or understand it, or even acknowledge it. It exists on its own terms, following its own rhythms, obeying its own rules. And that existence, that patient, indifferent, eternal existence, offers you something valuable. It offers you an image of a place where rest is not just possible but fundamental, where stillness is not an absence but a presence, where doing nothing is not failure but the default state of being. You carry this image with you now, whether you're aware of it or not. The deep ocean has entered your mind, has become part of your internal landscape, a place you can return to whenever you need reminder of what true rest looks like. When the world feels too loud, too bright, too demanding, too rushed, you can remember the deep ocean. You can remember its darkness, its silence, its patience, its vast indifference to surface chaos. You can remember that somewhere on this planet, right now, there exists a place where none of that surface noise can reach, where everything moves slowly, where time stretches, where encounters are rare, where simply existing without doing is perfectly sufficient. And you can let that memory quiet something in you, can let it slow your breathing, can let it soften the edges of your thoughts, can let it guide you back toward rest whenever you need to find your way there. The deep ocean will still be there tomorrow and the next day, and for millions of years to come. It will outlast you will outlast everyone you know, will outlast civilizations and species and continents. It's been here in essentially this same form for hundreds of millions of years already. It knows how to persist, how to endure, how to simply be without striving or changing or improving. It knows how to rest. And now, through this journey, through this slow descent and this gentle rise that hasn't quite returned you to the surface, you know a little of what it knows. You've touched that deep stillness, that profound patience, that absolute absence of hurry, and you can return to it whenever you need to, can sink back into its dark embrace whenever the surface becomes too much. For now, simply rest, simply float, simply exist in this space between depths, this zone where consciousness and unconsciousness blur together, where you're neither fully asleep nor fully awake, but somewhere in between, held by the memory of the deep, cradled by its qualities, even as you drift wherever your body needs you to go. The ocean has given you everything it has to give. The rest is yours. The deep is yours. The darkness is yours. The patience is yours. And whether you sink back into the deepest zones or continue your gradual rise toward eventual waking, know that you've learned something tonight, something the deep ocean has been teaching for hundreds of millions of years to anyone willing to descend and listen. Rest is not something you achieve. It's something you allow. It's something you sink into, like water, like darkness, like the vast patient stillness of the deep ocean that asks nothing and offers everything. You are safe. You are exactly where you need to be. Good night.